Welcome to another episode of The Candy Show. I'm your host, Candy. We have another extra special guest in the building. Guys, I want you to welcome singer, songwriter, producer, and let's see what else he has going on. He's also a musician. Guys, I want you to welcome award-winning Mr. Preston Glass.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Candy. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Preston Glass, for accepting this invitation.
All right.
Where are you coming from today?
We're live from Los Angeles, California, in being real specific about it, Windsor Hills, California.
Okay, so how far is that from LA?
Yeah, from downtown Los Angeles, maybe about 15 minutes. Of course,
Okay.
I shouldn't say minutes because traffic is horrendous here, so I'll say about 10 miles. Yeah.
Okay. Well, guys, first of all, let's just go ahead and take care of this necessary business. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube page. That's capital C, Candy Productions, and the number 2 at the end. Capital C, Candy Productions, and the number 2 at the end. Also, make sure you are following the official Instagram page, and that is Candy Talk Show. Candy Talk Show. Guys, just make sure that you are subscribed, you are sharing, you are following not only my page, but also Mr. Preston Glass. And we're going to make sure we give you that information shortly. Another thing we want to do, we want to say a huge shout out and thank you to Mr. Andre Pittman of Enthroned Entertainment. So we want to make sure that we give him a very special shout out and thank you so much for making this connection. So let's go ahead and start this interview. You ready, Mr. Preston?
Yes, let's do this.
Okay, so I have royalty in the building. And yes, I always want to make sure that we make a mention to them. I want to make
somebody else.
I want to make sure that we make sure that everyone knows, yes, he is royalty, even though a lot of us probably have never seen his face before. But he stamped a lot of songs and a lot of artist songs that you and I know that I am so familiar with hearing before. But let's go a little bit back. So, Mr. Preston, like I said, welcome to the Candy Show.
All right. Thanks for having me.
You're
Appreciate
welcome. You're welcome. Mr. Preston, let me just first and say foremost, thank you. I appreciate the things that you have done, and I'm so glad I'm actually being able to physically put a body to the work, the amount of the body of work that you have done, and you have put your stamp on this industry, the music industry. So I appreciate when I'm able to see those people that you normally would never really see. You're usually seeing the artist, but you never see who's behind the artist. So I just thank you so much, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. You're making me feel old. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, no, please don't. Please don't. Down here, I like to, first and foremost, I want to promote you. And I want to, first of all, promote what you have going on right now. And then I want you to make sure that you let them know where they can follow you and look at your body of work, website, social media. Let them know those two things. And then we'll get into the backstory shortly. Okay.
Okay. Well, of course, I'm on social media, Facebook, just Preston Glass. If there's any other Preston Glass, they probably don't have the vast collection of hats that I have. So that's me. You can recognize my face. But on Instagram is pglass 1012, pglass 1012 on Instagram. I have a record company that has a distribution situation with Soul Music Records. So if you go to soulmusicrecords.com, it mentions a lot about the releases that my company, which is called Platinum Garage Recordings. So Platinum Garage Recordings is the name of my wife and I's company. And that's about it. We have a few little websites, but, websites has become almost I won't say non-existent, but not very important as much as social media is.
That I do agree with. A lot of people want to refer straight to either YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. And then if you're a Twitter person or heck, even TikTok. So those are usually the go-to platforms now.
Right.
Websites, right. But then you can't tell everything about yourself all the time on just those platforms also. So it's also nice for people to go and refer to your website to purchase any merchandise or anything like that. So can we find a website on any of one of those social media platforms?
Yeah, Personal Touch Recording is one of ours. And I would say just Google me, and then you'll come across a whole plethora of places you can find out what I'm doing and what I've done. And you'll be like, can't get rid of this guy.
Okay, so let's get on into it. So first and foremost, I know I probably could have said a lot about you, but your work speaks for itself. And then I think you would probably be best to be able to let the audience know who you really are. Now, I said singer, songwriter, producer, and a musician, but you are also an award-winning recipient. You just recently received an award. Tell us a little bit about the award that you received on the behalf of Enthroned Entertainment. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I guess it was a lifetime achievement from Mr. Andre Pittman and Enthroned Entertainment. I was honored to be among many other friends in the industry that I happen to know that are well known. But basically, I'm a songwriter first, and while I might have a lot of other things attached to my name, basically because my journey has taken me different places. I started as a songwriter when I was 5 years old, and professionally when I was a teenager. So I've been doing music 50 years, and but to the heart of me is because of my songwriting. I became a producer because of my songwriting. I'm a musician because of my songwriting. Uh, I've won awards because of my producing and songwriting, that kind of thing, and been fortunate to work with many people that have been my idols, and they've become my friends. People like Whitney Houston and Aretha Franklin, Johnny Mathis, Kenny G, George Benson, Angela Bofield, Jermaine Jackson. The list is long, but there are a lot of newer artists too that I'm excited about. So I keep busy.
I see that. I see that. And please forgive me because I listened to and I looked at your resume. I looked at the body of work that you've been associated with, and just to know the legends that you have had and that you penned some of their greatest hits. And so when I say royalty, I mean a legend. I have a royalty. I have royalty in the building. And I do get a little teary sometimes because I wouldn't have never imagined as a child growing up that I would be able to meet the people behind the people that we see. Because I think the people that are behind the people that we see are very important.
I truly appreciate that. Thank you.
Are so much more important a lot of times than the artist, because the artist, hey, they get out there and they're that face, but then it's an entire team behind that artist that makes that artist the artist, besides the fact that it may have natural gifts. But yes, it's the team.
Yeah, I was really blessed, and it is a gift. I think when I say 5 years old, I didn't really know exactly what I was doing, but when you say those people behind the scenes, that's what I recognized when I was that young. I used to take my little 45 records that I would buy with my allowance and put them on my little record player. And while the main artist, might be somebody like Stevie Wonder or Smokey Robinson, or I recognize the names in the parentheses of those records. And I remember asking my dad, who are those people? Because I noticed that on a lot of the records, it was those same people mentioned in the parentheses, like, I might see a guy named Thom Bell, or I might see a lady like Carole King or Burt Bacharach. And he said, those are the songwriters, and they make most of the money. So that caught my attention. And I knew early on that I said, okay, because I like this music. So I don't necessarily want to be a singer or a performer or dancer or whatever. I want to make the music that these major artists can record and then be an influencer that way. So I was fortunate to recognize it early on, and I started that path very young, and then became a professional at it, and it's carried me a long way and a long time.
5. Were you writing rhymes? Were you doodling?
Yeah, well, it was just, like I said, I didn't really know. I had my dad's guitar, and I was a real small person. I was still kind of short, so I'd have to set it on my lap because it was too big for me to sit up straight. But I would hear music, and so I just started creating new songs, but based on the style of what I heard. And I remember playing the music to my older brothers, and they were like, "Where'd you hear that song?" I said, "Wow, I just made it up." They'd be like, "What? That's a good song." So once I got older and I started to recognize, well, I have a talent at this. I have a gift. So and then I got a lot of assistance and support and encouragement from my family, my mom and dad, my uh, brothers, sisters. So I early teens started pursuing publishers and things like that, and that's how I got the attention initially of Mr. Thom Bell, who is with the Gamble Huff Philadelphia sound. Most people have heard of Gamble Huff. A lot of people don't as readily recognize Thom Bell. Those in the industry know who Thom Bell and Linda Creed were. They did all the stylistic stuff and Delphonics and spinners and people like that. So Mr. Bell signed me as a staff writer. I was age 19, and immediately any projects that he was producing, I got a chance to write for. So immediately I started writing songs and got recordings from Dee Dee Bridgewater and Denise Williams, Phyllis Hyman, the Temptations, Stylistics, and that was all through Thom Bell. And while I was there, under his tutelage, I saw how he was producing and arranging, and that's kind of how I got into that part. I started wearing that hat, and then I started working with Narada Michael Walden, who a lot of people might know he was an artist first, but then of course he became one of the greatest producers of all time, doing Whitney and Mariah Carey and Angela Bofill, Aretha Franklin, and same thing. I started learning under him. He has a different style, so I was learning how he produced. So I started producing after that, and the first album I ever produced was something that I didn't know would be successful, but it ended up selling 14 million albums. I was like, what?
Well, you have skipped over a lot of stuff, but before we go on, a couple of things. Number one, I'm a hat person too. I just don't have my hat on right now.
All right. Yeah, hats.
Yes, yes, yes. Give a shout out for
You're,
hats.
you're Midwest, and see that's where they know how to dress out there. California, we're kind of lazy, but I have an affinity for dressing and hats and stuff like that.
That's part of the outfit. I was born in the early 70s, so I know what dress to impress means, and hats are still complementing outfits to this day.
Right? You ain't never lie.
And I also grew up with a lot of different music, so this is a reason why I am so honored to just have looked at your resume and seen all the different people that you work with and just knowing that you had, again, like I said, some way, some form, whether it's penning or music producing, a song that I grew up on, or multiple songs that I grew up on. So I'm going to take you a little bit back when you were talking about being part of Mr. You said Thomas Bell, correct?
Correct.
His writing team. Was that something that you guys, I mean, how did you come about doing that? Because was it just, hey, I want to write music. Can you see what I need? Can you help me? How did that journey start?
I'll tell you the story. You tell me when to stop because I could talk about this forever. But
Okay. Well, let's start where the point up until you met Michael, excuse me, Mr.
Thom Bell.
Yeah, Mr. John Bell. Yes, thank you.
So I was around 15, 16 years old in high school. And by this time, I was a huge fan of his work. And I saw that he was giving a seminar in Philadelphia for his music, and inviting the people to check it out and present music and all that. I was in California, so 3,000 miles away. I put on a talent show at my high school that got the full support of the choir, and they said whatever money you raise, half of it go to the music department, and you can keep the other half. So I used that money to go to Philadelphia, to fly 3,000 miles and meet Mr. Bell, Thom Bell. And I basically was, it was persistence. And he said, wow, you flew all this way. And how old are you? I said, 16. So I basically said, I'd like to work under your guidance. I'll fly. I'll move to Philadelphia. And he said, "Well, you got to finish high school." And I said, "I'll finish high school out in Philadelphia." And then he whispered in my ear and said, "Guess what? Don't tell nobody, but I'm moving to the West Coast very soon. So just stay out there. And when you finish high school, look me up." And that's what I did. He moved to Seattle, Washington, started his operation there, producing people like Elton John and all kind of people. So when I finished high school, he kept his word. I looked him up. He said, "Come on up here and let me see what kind of music you're doing." And he said, "Okay, I'm gonna guide you on a few things that you need some assistance with." And he signed me to Bellboy Music, part of the Mighty Three, which is Campbell, Huff, and Bell. And that was 1980. And like I said, I got immediately started writing. It was my brother and I, we as a writing team, Alan Glass, and we started writing for anything that Thom Bell was producing. And that launched my professional career. But it was really persistence, because I could have came out to Philadelphia. First of all, I could have not even went there because 3,000 miles. I wasn't rich. And so it was like I had to figure out a way. How am I going to get out there? So I said, I talked to my choir teacher, Mr. Floyd Massard. He gave me the idea, hey, we can use the music department here to help, get you out there. And then when I met him and he didn't immediately sign me, I could have got discouraged. Well, yeah, maybe I shouldn't do this. But he said, no, just keep at it. Look me up. And I did that. And persistence really paid off.
Tell people how persistence is so important. Being persistent is so important to me because it shows people that you're really hungry, you're really passionate, you really have a goal that you're trying to achieve, and you're not trying to stop until you're able to achieve that. Do you feel the same way about that word persistent?
100%. It's really important. If you don't believe in yourself, how are you going to expect someone else to? So um, that's first and foremost, I think. You can have a lot of support and help, and of course, God is the key of everything in that way. But belief and really strength. Even when you get knocked down, get up, dust yourself off, and move ahead to the goal.
With that particular opportunity, now we all know that it's very hard. It was hard then, it's just as hard now, if not harder, to put yourself in a position where you're even in this industry and you get that opportunity. Take us back and tell me how you felt about that when he decided to take you under his tutelage.
I was, of course, I was excited and of course happy, but at the same time, it was such a busy time. Like, it wasn't like, okay, you're signed now, take your time. And no, it's like what they call hit the ground running, and it's been hit the ground running ever since. It isn't just until recently I'm looking back like, wow, I did all that. Like I said, making me feel old here. But not, it's the kind of thing where when you love what you do, you just keep doing it. And you do it for the love of the music or the craft. You don't do it for the money. I mean, people do it for that, but not me. And just doing it for the love of the craft. And on the journey, you meet people, and you make long life friends. That's how I met my wife. I was working on a project with Narada Michael Walden producing, and he was producing Larry Graham from Sly and the Family Stone, and I was just a musician songwriter on that project. But Larry's wife had a sister, and she came to the studio, and we met, and we've been married almost 40 years now. So,
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So relationships and friendships, and working relationships happen through those music projects. So.
When you were just under Mr. Thom Bell's umbrella and he was mentoring you, tell us a little bit about some of the artists that you worked with or worked on their albums, because the word album and project is tough. Like, I don't know what happened to the word album, but I'm going to say album because that's what it
Yeah.
was back then, and that's what it is for
Records,
me.
album, yeah, those are ancient words, but they're dear to my heart. Yeah, uh, working with Denise Williams, that was the second project I ever worked on, and we co-wrote a song with her. Me, Thom Bell, Alan Glass, my brother, and Denise wrote the song on her My Melody album that Tom produced or co-produced with her, and that album had a lot of great songs on it. It had a song that people still play now called "Silly" by Denise Williams. The song that we wrote is called "You're All That Matters," and it made it on one of her greatest hits albums. So proud of that.
Now, I know that you have worked with a countless number of artists. So talk to a little about how the journey of it. So would you call back then like writing or writer sessions at the time? Were you guys doing those things at the time?
We had the benefit of writing. I call it target writing. Like we didn't just write a song and just say, now who could do this, or how do we get it to a certain person, or who should we get it to? As I mentioned with Thom Bell, he had a specific project. Okay, now I'm getting ready to produce Phyllis Hyman. So we knew, okay, Phyllis's style, Phyllis's voice, what they were looking for. So when we were sitting down writing, we weren't writing in the blind. We knew, okay, we want to do this kind of tune and that kind of tune, and these titles and these lyrics, and that melody, that range. So we had at least what you call a framework to work out of, and I think that helped. And then we weren't writing like today. There's not too many staff writing situations like what we had, so we were real fortunate. Nowadays, if you're a fledgling writer, you have to write, then figure out who can I shop this song to, and a lot of times doors close. But we had an automatic, you know, not to say the song was automatically accepted. If we turned in a song that Thom Bell didn't like, okay, back to drawing board. But at least we know we were writing for him and the projects he was doing. We didn't have to keep shopping around. But I'll tell you a little story about that because, again, persistence. Um, we were writing so many songs, and Thom was only doing so many projects that, we write a song. Yeah, he might use one or two or three for this, but we had maybe another 10, 15 sitting over here collecting dust. So I said, you know what? I'm going to figure out a way now. I'm going to send these songs that are unused to other producers that I happen to admire. And one of the people I sent it to was Narada Michael Walden. And even though we were working for Thom Bell at the time, Narada heard some music and off the demos that we recorded, and he liked, in particular, he liked a song we wrote for Stacey Ladisaw, and he recorded it. And it was through that relationship. And there was a gentleman there that worked for Narada named Charlie Boone. That was his nickname. And so he's the one that recognized, oh, this guy's got talent. Narada, check this out. And through that, Narada contacted me and said, hey, I'd like to collaborate with you. So Thom Bell was kind of slowing down on some of the things he was doing at the time. So I said, okay, let me go down there and write some with Narada. When I say go down there, I meant from Seattle to San Francisco, and started writing stuff for Narada. And he used stuff for like Carl Carlton. I don't know if you remember Carl Carlton. He had that hit "She's a Bad Mama Jamma." But so I wrote for him. I wrote for Stacey Ladisaw, Johnny Gill. Wrote that song "Perfect Combination," and then Angela Bofill, Phyllis Hyman, a lot of the different projects. And of course, then that's when Aretha and Whitney Houston came up. So I went from working with Thom Bell to Narada Michael Walden, kind of fell right into that situation. And it was right on the upswing of when Narada was going from becoming an artist to a producer, and he needed some songs, he needed some A&R work, which I did a lot of for him. And I learned a lot of production tricks from him that made me become a producer.
So it
So
sounds like this entire time you were getting your feet wet, but you were also learning the craft and how to perfect your craft and how to become a more successful songwriter by shadowing greater songwriters, those that were doing it.
exactly. I mean, how can
Oh gosh.
it wasn't until just, just like I said, just recently looking back and go, wait a minute, out of all the producers in the world I could have started working for, well, Thom Bell was the first producer in history to ever win a Grammy for Producer of the Year. A lot of people don't know that. In 1975 is when the Grammy Committee instituted that category, Producer of the Year, and the first producer to ever win it was Thom Bell.
Wow.
So that's how big he was. But he's a humble individual. He just passed away in December, but many people came out and talked about how he really influenced them, and they never met him. You would always see, I never met him, but he's great. And I was like, man, not only did I meet him, but I worked with him and ended up living down the street from him. So it was a really rare thing that I've been able to achieve.
And speaking of some of the things, now I just have, I'm glad you mentioned that, because as growing up, looking at some of the award shows, you would hardly ever again see them recognize the team, the writing team, the producers that were behind making these songs what they were and as accomplished as they were. And so when later on they started recognizing that, usually, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you still almost would never see that writing team come up on the stages again, usually the artist. Now over the years, yes, it has changed. So this again is the reason why I am so excited to even meet you, because you have to look at the credits in order to see who made the song, and then you normally never see that person unless
In
you're
real
in the
life,
industry.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you never see them. So again, I just again appreciate you. But for those who are listening and looking and just did a little research, I'm gonna name off a few songs that some people might know. I know because again, I grew up with a lot of these songs. Natalie Cole, Miss You Like Crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Miss You Like
Oh,
Crazy.
go ahead.
Is
Go ahead.
that
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I'm
you got.
I'm not a singer, but I'm trying to sing a little something so people would might know or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned the late great Queen of Soul, Miss Aretha Franklin. Who's open who?
There you go.
Okay, now you have to help me with this one. Now, Jimmy Lee. I kind of remember Jimmy Lee. That's another Aretha Franklin
Yeah.
song.
Uh-huh.
That
What do you mean? How am I going to help you? You want me
yeah, what was that chorus? Tell me a little bit, sing a little bit of chorus of how.
to? No, I'm just Jimmy Lee. Who can it be? Yeah.
That's
Excuse
right.
me.
That's right. Okay. Now, I'm not going to say them all, but
Hmm.
for those people who are into jazz, because again, I love different kind of genres of music. So first song that I've heard of this gentleman, saxophonist, Mr. Kenny G. Ooh, Songbird. Mm. When I say Kenny G, that is the first song that I know of Kenny G.
Yeah, we're real. That album, as I mentioned, well, I didn't say what it was, but thank you for help letting cat out of the bag. That was the first album I ever produced. I had co-produced a couple of things with Narada, like I did Stacey Lattice song, Johnny Gill. But that was they threw me the ball and said, "Okay, you're going to produce this album." And Kenny had already had 4 albums out. A lot of people think the album I did was his first album because it was very successful, but he had about 4 albums out. They sold very moderately. I remember us being in the studio talking to each other. We were like, if we can sell 35,000 albums, that would be great. See, because jazz artists, they don't really sell as much as pop or, other styles. So uh, when it ended up doing what it did, we were flabbergasted.
And you said that's your first album that you solely produced?
Solely produced, yeah.
Wow.
And that kind of, then I started getting calls not only from other sax players or sax player record companies, and some people either love Kenny G or hate him. So some sax players were like, no, I don't want to do that because I think a lot of people were haters because he sold so many, and sax players that have been struggling for years that really are sax sax school, should I say. Um, and then here's this guy who comes out of nowhere. That's not really, he didn't really study the greats like others, but he's gonna have his style and boom. So I had to, being the producer of that, I had to navigate my way through that. Like, well, some people either love it or hate it. And then, of course, me being primarily, I'm an soul music, R&B music is my forte. So I had to be careful not to be typecast. But I'm glad that other people came to me, like Earth, Wind, and Fire, of all people. I mean, Maurice White became a lifelong friend after we worked together on an album, of a Earth, Wind, and Fire album. And here, I'm like thinking, what does Earth, Wind, and Fire see in me? I'm this little old guy. You guys produce such great music. You don't need me. And basically, they said we want some young blood, some new blood, young blood. And at the time, I was young, so it was a very, very great time.
Mm. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. It's Songbird. That's Songbird. That song was not okay. So the record company, Arista Records, released the first single, it kind of flopped. Then they released the second single, it kind of flopped. I think they were about to drop Kenny G after that, and then they released Songbird, and boom, went up the charts. And then they re-released the first two singles. They did great too. So
Well, that sounds like that old saying, all you need is just one hit.
yeah.
One hit. Well, let me go down the list. You also just mentioned, and I'm also going to ask you this question, but you mentioned Earth, Wind, and Fire. Now, as I was doing my research and the song System of Survival, I've thought about it and I was like, wait a minute, let me listen to the song again, because we are so many years past a lot of the genre of music that you penned at like really big hits. I was like, you know what? I remember that song, and I start listening to that song again. It still applies today.
Yeah, a lot of people say lyrically, especially, it maybe it's more relevant now than it even was then. But that's the one great thing about music. It's timeless, really. And I'm gonna say a quick story about how that song. I didn't write that song. I co-produced it and played on it with Maurice White. But the way we found that song, somebody, and this goes back to persistence, was persistent about getting a song to Earth, Wind, and Fire. They heard that they were producing a new project and that they were in the Bay Area where we worked. And so him being from the Bay Area, the songwriter, came to our office, but I never met him. I was in the studio and he was told, well, they don't really need songs. They're writing their own songs. So he said, oh, I got to get on the song. So he waited till we left, unbeknownst to us, till we came out of the studio that night, late that night, and he followed the cars to where Maurice White and Philip Bailey were staying. Then he, on their rent-a-car, he taped the cassette tape of the song on their driver's side window. So when they got up the next day, they saw this tape to the driver's side, and then they put it in as they were driving to the studio. They said, wow, this is a great song. And they played it for me. I thought it was such a great demo. I thought it was them on the demo. I said, well, you didn't play me this before. They looked at each other. We didn't play it because it's not our songs. We found this on the car door. And so we all agreed, yeah, let's record this song. And then, of course, we called the songwriter, and he was happy. And in fact, he ended up playing on the song. He got a songwriting contract out of that from a publisher. So that was because of his persistence, taping the car, taping the cassette tape on the car. But that's how the song ended up going to #1 on the R&B chart and the dance chart.
Wow. And you know what, back then, when I thought about that, I thought that was a little different for Earth, Wind, and Fire, but I understood that it, first of all, it needed to be done to keep them relevant in the time that we were in, because the music sound was changing. And again, once again, it's still pretty much relevant today if you listen to the lyrics on that. And the songs that I'm talking about right now, I'm speaking specifically to songwriter, producer, musician, singer, Mr. Preston Glass. I'm just naming off a few that some of the audience might know. And if you don't know, go back and listen to them. Then you'll be like, oh yeah, I heard that one. You spoke her up. And just for you know, this was the one song that I believe that a lot of people remember this gentleman by. You just spoke on Stacey Lattisaw and Johnny Gill. So that's the first time that I heard of either one of them. And as we already know who Johnny Gill is today, he's in one of my favorite groups of all times, in addition. But that was the first time I remember hearing Mr. Johnny Gill. Tell me about that particular project and Perfect Combination.
There you go. Sang. Yeah, they both were 16 years old when they sang that to get the duet together. And I remember specifically being in the studio with Johnny on that song, and he had laryngitis, and he still sang that great. That shows you what kind of voice he has and had even as a teenager. Yeah, and that song was is still being played, and it was just used in a movie with the movie that King Richard, that was about the Serena and Venus Williams. Was in that movie.
Okay, there's one other one I want to jump to real quick, and I remember this. And then we're going to jump to, you also work with some newer age art, newer age talent as well. But Jermaine Stewart, for those, because I have a little singing, a little capabilities. So
Yeah.
I love this song. It's almost like a one of a kind song. So for those who don't know this song, let me sing it a little bit for you, okay? Okay, hold on. Let me give it. Okay. You don't have to take your clothes off, no, to have a good time. No, we can party all night.
All night. And drink some
Cherry wine.
a lot of people would approach me about that after they heard it. Cherry wine? What is that? I don't know. I just thought of something unique. But yeah, Jermaine Stewart made that a hit, but a lot of people re-recorded that, and some people even have done a ballad version of that, a slow version. And there's been, like, you see these shows like The Voice and American Idol where they come on and they do the ballad. A lot of people, youngsters, do the ballad version of that now, and so that's been used on The Voice a lot. But a lot of times when I still do this when I write, I think of unique song titles first, then I'll write the song to the title. And I had this title sitting around for a while called "We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off." I thought, well, that's a unique title. And then I came up with the song. And I think the reason why that's valuable sometimes is when you have a unique title, a lot of times, whether it's a DJ or a record company, they'll, before they play it, they have to look at it. They have to, they get it out the package. They look, what is this? They see the title. If you have a title like "I Love You" or "I Need You" or "Baby Baby," that's so generic. Nobody really is moved by that. But if you have something that's really unique, it jumps off the page. I mean, a song like "Thriller." Okay, before that was even heard, they had to see "Thriller." What is that? Things like that. Uh, I think make a difference in making people want to play the record. That's why "Who's Zooming Who." I think that you know something went viral on I think it was YouTube. The president of the United States the other day said "Who's zooming who" because I think he was responding to an incident that happened, and somebody said, "Are you going to go to that area where that disaster happened?" He said, "Well, I just did a video. What do they call it? And the reporter said Zoom." He said, "Oh, every time I hear Zoom, I think of the song from my generation, Who's Zooming Zoom." So when the president of the United States mentions your song, he's like, "Wow, that's unique."
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because are you still benefiting off of the
Yeah,
writing and credit or producing credibility on some of these songs, or a lot of these songs?
yeah. Anytime those songs are played or used, or in a movie or re-recorded, yeah, I benefit as a songwriter and a publisher. So that's the other part of songwriting and the music industry, basically, that it'd be wise to learn about is publishing and master ownership, things of that nature, so you can benefit off of, and then even after you pass away, your beneficiaries can benefit from.
Publishing is actually one of the things I want to talk to you about. What, like you just mentioned, back then, when did you establish your publishing company again? How long?
Okay, so
How long from the time you really actually got into it and you were working with Mr. Bell that you said, hey, you know what, I need to secure some things? So how long did it take you to actually get your publishing company started?
Yeah, that's a good, very good question. We could talk a whole show about that, but to make it short, because I was signed to Bellboy Music, Mighty Three Music, uh, a 3 and 3 3-year contract plus 3, which basically means after the end of the first 3, if they want to keep me for another 3 based on how I performed or how the songs performed, it's going to be a 6-year contract. So for the first 6 years of my career, I didn't have any publishing, but I still got half of the income of the song as the songwriter. So a, a song is made up of, if you picture it like a pie, half of the pie is publishing, half of it is songwriting. So if you don't get any publishing, you still get half of the pie, but you don't have the, not only the other half of the pie, but you don't have the decision making capability. Like if a movie company wants to use your song, they go to the publisher, and the publisher can has the right to say you can't use this song, even though you as a songwriter might say, yeah, let me use it. Yeah. It's the publisher that makes the decisions. So in case of answering your question, so right after that, after my first 6 years, I was able to do a publishing deal with Almore Irving, which is Herb Alpert's company. I did from that point on to currently, I've had not only pieces of my publishing, but full ownership. So, but
Wow.
the reason that's a good question, because sometimes to start out, you have to give up your publishing for a certain amount of time. There's nothing wrong with that because you can establish yourself, establish your career. Sometimes people have heard stories and they think, "Oh, I'm not giving up none of my publishing," but that can be dangerous because let's say if somebody like uh, who's a big artist right now, let's say if John Legend wants to use one of your songs and he says, "Okay, I love this song you wrote, but I want the publishing. You can have the writer share." Then you say, "Oh, no way." Now that song could have ended up selling, 40 million records. Means you could make a lot of money and get your name out there. This is your first song you ever heard. But if you turn it down and then nothing happens with the song, you might miss an opportunity. So you have to kind of weigh, should I do this? Uh, and then, especially since you might write a lot of songs, then it might be good to start there, especially if it's a huge artist like somebody that's maybe #1 on the charts. So the starting place is good. And sometimes later in your career, you might have to, let's say you always wanted to become a film scorer or a writer for movies. And movie companies pretty much generally they automatically take half of your publishing at least. They might get more. So you might be an established producer, but now your dream of getting the movies, okay, but they say I want half of your publishing. If you turn that down, and the movie's successful, then you're going to miss out on that opportunity. So those are what things you have to weigh.
It's a toss up. You don't know. Everything is a 50-50. You don't know what decision is going to be the best decision until you make it sometimes,
Right.
especially when it comes to a situation where it's a certain opportunity that you don't get very often. So it's like, oh gosh, well, which one do I want to do? If you're a true believer in your craft, in your gift, then you know that you will reap the benefits down the line. Now, you brought up a few things while you're talking. How many songs do you recall that you have written even up to today?
Okay, so songs I've written, not all of them have been recorded, but you remember we're talking about I started around age 5, 6, so it's about 5,000, maybe a little bit more than that. As far as though songs that have been recorded, it's about 600.
Wow. I'm talking about the ones that you've produced. How many of those have you produced or at least had some hand in producing?
Ah, That might even be more because I say might because I haven't sat there and counted it, but there's a lot of songs that I've produced that I didn't write. And you named two of them today that ended up being real successful, and that's Songbird. I didn't write that song. Kenny G wrote that, but I did produce it. System of Survival. I didn't write that, but I did produce it. So there's a lot, in the hundreds, probably more than 500 of the productions.
When you were going through this, and matter of fact, you're still writing to this day, correct? You're still writing and producing to
Oh
this
yeah,
day.
yeah. You might say something. I'm gonna write a song based on what you said, uh, but I'll give you writers, co-writers, credit on it.
Okay.
I do,
Okay.
I do, I say that because I get a lot of ideas from conversation. Somebody will say something, I go, "Oh." I remember one time we went somewhere and we had heard that we were getting ready to arrive at this place, and we had heard it was raining. So, but when we got there, it wasn't raining. So my wife said to me, "Oh, honey, you send the rain away." So I said, it's a great song title. So I made a song on it, and Rebbie Jackson recorded it. But that's funny. She said, "I didn't get writer's credit on it." I said, "Well, you get all the money in it." So
Speak- Speaking of your wife, is she still managing you? Because I read somewhere where she was your manager or isn't your
yeah,
manager.
she does a lot of management for me. Some things don't require management. Some things just require my knowledge of the industry and a lawyer. Um, but yes, a lot of projects she manages me on.
Wow. Now, how long has she been your manager?
Oh, maybe about 30 years. Yeah,
Wow, that's a long time.
it sure is.
Is that rare to have a wife managing a husband in the business? I've seen some things like I definitely know right off the top of my head, Bobby's wife is managing him.
Right, that's
So
right.
that's the one that comes to my head like right now. But is that rare? Has it
It's
been
kind of
rare?
rare. It's not, when you say wife, but spouse, because, sometimes a husband will manage the wife. So both things that's happened before, but it is more rare than not. And like I say, we keep it. The good thing is we can keep it loose because certain projects we may ask that person, "You manage me on this project. You handle that," because their expertise might be a little different. So because we're married, we have we don't have to have a contract like that. We can say, "Okay, on that one, you're going to do that. On that one, I'm," that kind of thing.
Have you ever ghost wrote? Because I know we're talking about writing. Have you ever been a ghost writer? Or has
Well,
everything
I
already been credible to your name?
never been a ghostwriter. Never wanted to. Didn't know what that was when I was a kid, but then I was actually, I won't say names or anything, but somebody wanted me to be a part of their writing establishment or production company, but they wanted me to change my name for different reasons. I didn't, and they were going to give a good amount of money, and I said no, no, no. I got to have my name on there. So money has never ever been a reason that I'm doing something. It's about now. One thing I found out later is that your name is money. So I'm glad I always kept my name on stuff that I wrote. And I found out later, no, that matters. If your name is on it, that'll attract, uh, resources.
You've written, co-wrote, and you've also produced for a different genres. What do you think is your go-to when you're ready to start writing a song or producing a song or putting your name attached to a song? Which one do you like better? Is it jazz? Is it R&B? Is it pop? Tell me, soul, tell me.
Probably soul. I mean, I like a lot. I like a lot of different styles, and it depends on Most of the times I don't just sit down and just, okay, I'm going to write a song. I usually have, like I mentioned earlier, a target, you know, a certain project or person or artist. So if it's jazz, then I'll know, okay, I'm going to make sure it's got that jazz vibe, or if it's pop, or if it's country, whatever it is. But my good, like you said, go to is probably because that's uh, the genre of the for instance, Thom Bell, he was known for soul, Philly soul. Narada Michael Walden, he's known for soul, and then sometimes soul pop. But when I did Kenny G, even though he wouldn't call himself jazz, he would call himself just music or pop with a saxophone. He got thrown into the jazz genre. So some people, that's where the controversy came in, because a lot of people know he's not jazz, and then some people think he's jazz because he's saxophone. But I got thrown in there being the producer because of it being an instrumental project of a jazz artist. So I did a lot of jazz projects, and some I'm very proud of. So
With the long amount of time that you and your expertise in the catalog of not only just the artists that you've worked with, when it comes to writing, or let's even talk about producing, how do you keep it fresh?
oh man, I love current music too, because not only do I try and keep an ear to the ground, but I have 4 grandkids, youngsters. My daughter sings, so they keep me young in that way. Like, hey, have you heard this? Check this out. And I'm like, wow, that's good. Sometimes back in the day, we didn't really hear about too many underground artists. It was either the top music or whatever they played on the radio. These days, you get people that can put their own music out. They release their own music. So there's a lot of great music out there that's underground, and I do get excited about that. I know a lot of people my age and older, they're like, yeah, the music today is terrible. I don't like it. But a lot of times they're not exposed to the underground or the lesser known artists. You got to kind of search for it. But that keeps me excited. Yeah, and some of the new artists I'm working with, Terrell Williams. I just co-produced an album with one of my co-producing partners, Christian Bell Navis. We did Terrell Williams' album. She's a phenomenal singer. Um, Brandon Watts, one of the best male vocalists I've ever heard. He's a young man out there. Worked with him, and we have an artist named Takim we're working on an album for. So all these new artists keep me excited as well.
Now, I'm gonna ask you a few more questions because I know that your time is very limited. You got to get back into the studio and do your thing. Tell us about the accomplishments back there.
Back here,
Yes.
wow, that's just what have I got? Yeah, sometimes you get an award for just playing on an album. I know Tevin Campbell. You probably know who Tevin Campbell is. And in fact, that was the album with Can We Talk? But of course, Babyface did that. But on the same album, Narada Michael Walden produced about 5 tunes. So I played keyboards, I played sitar, which is an instrument a lot of people don't know about, and then I also sang background on some of those songs. So for just doing that, having that involvement with that album, they award you I think that was a platinum. Let's see. It said 2 million, 2 million. So that's platinum.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned singing. When did you put your own projects out? No, excuse me. Let me go back. Let me scratch the word project because again, albums.
Yeah,
That's what I'm used to.
yeah, me too.
Albums. Hey,
Uh,
I'm so used to also the 8-track tape, so that's how
yeah. All right.
experienced I am.
Yeah. Um, and I always wondered why they call it 8-track when there's really only 4 track. You remember
Yeah.
that? But they call it 8-track. But anyway,
I remember taking it out of the thing.
yeah, yeah. Oh well. But somebody back in the early 2000s approached me. It was a record label. They said, "Have you thought of doing any of your own albums?" I said, "Well, I'm not really a singer." And they said, "Oh, I've seen your name on there singing background stuff. I know you can sing." They said, "But what about if you did like a Quincy Jones album, that type of album where you have other people singing, but you produce, and we'd be interested in giving you a deal that way." I said, "Well, I can do that." So that's what got me on the road to doing that. I did I think I did 3 albums where it was primarily other artists, Al Jarreau and Johnny Mathis and people like that. And then I did 3 more where I'm the only one on there singing and writing and all the backgrounds and playing. So became a enjoying, should I say, enjoyable process doing my own projects because I would be able to express myself very differently than I would do other people's project, and not anything trying to have a number 1 album, just expression, getting it out there, cathartic it was.
Because I have to imagine if you are writing and you're producing, you're touching and you're putting your work and your effort into helping build someone else's career, and you work countless of hours, and then not only but so much were able to make it to the label and it made it on the album. Like, what do you do with your own stuff? So is that when you decided to put out your own material?
Yeah, I think I had a couple of really important and actually very uh, prominent recording artists tell me you should do your own album. Now, when they said that, I was like, "Wow, you really think I can sing?" I was like, "I can't. I'm not a singer." And they said, "No, you have a great way of expressing your music and your voice and da da da. I think you should do that." So when they said that, I was like, "Wow, they're saying I can do that. Okay, I'll go ahead and do that." And that was encouraging.
With the amount of experience that you have, with the countless number of artists that you have worked with, there any 1 or 2 possible that you wanted to work with back in the day that that you're still like, hey, I still want to work with this person?
I
And
would I
and
would say,
let's also talk about someone that's in the newer times right now, someone that's current. So is there anyone around that you still may have wanted to work with a long time ago that you're still willing to work with, or you still want to work with now? And then who would you like to work with that's in the current times?
um, back in the day, I would say Sade and Stevie Wonder.
Oh,
And then in the current day, I would say Snow Allegra. She's a female artist. I love her voice and her style. And I still like Jay-Z. I don't know if people would say he's current or not, but him, wow.
it's a lot of them out there, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
just a lot. Yeah. Of course, Kendrick Lamar. There are a lot of people I admire, even unknown artists.
What keeps you going?
Not only just the creating of music, but much. And I really appreciate the people that gave me my first breaks, whether they're the actual people like a Thom Bell or some of the early publishers and early people that gave me starts. I know I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them, as far as music. So that's what keeps me going, is trying to help others, much in the way they did. It's a different day, different way that you have to put it into motion. But yeah, I enjoy doing that.
I see a picture on your social media. You like taking up some green every once in a while. Go out and hit that
Oh,
golf ball.
yeah. Well, that's yeah, very rare. I usually don't have much time because we know golf takes up a lot of time, but I enjoy it. I enjoy it, and that's a good opportunity to, chop it up, as they say, or make friends. You even do deals out on the course. So
So
yeah,
I heard too, a lot of business deals are done on the course.
yep.
Well, Mr. Preston Glass, I greatly appreciate your time today. I know that there are a lot of things that you have accomplished that we haven't even touched bases on. So, with that being said, can you once again let everyone know how they can reach you, follow you, work with you, find your music, and any other thing that they might want to look up and see who Mr. Preston Glass is? Let them know.
Yeah. Primarily, I mean, on social media, I'm on Facebook as Preston Glass. I also have a fan page, Preston Glass Music, and then Twitter, I believe it's Preston Glass Music. And then on Instagram is P Glass 1012. And you can Google me and see what I'm doing and also try and find me.
And the bodies of work can be found on what platforms? YouTube,
Every, every,
SoundCloud.
everything. YouTube, of course, but want to get some music. Of course, you got Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, iTunes. There's so many of them. Dweezer, Tidal. eh, Platforms keep growing every day, but yeah,
I
all,
know.
all of them. Pretty much.
Can't even keep up with them. It's like I'm so used to, oh yeah, so
Yeah.
MySpace, and then next thing you know, it's
Yeah,
Facebook and all that good
that's
stuff.
right. That's how it started. That's funny you said MySpace. Yeah, that's one of the first ones that started that.
That was a pretty cool platform back then. It wasn't as bad, and I'm gonna say not bad in a bad way, but it wasn't like so much going on. It
Right.
was that one platform, and that was it, and things
Right.
like that. I'm gonna ask you a very, very little bit of a lighter question. When you sit down at a dinner table, what's your favorite food that you like to eat?
Wow. Well, I'm not gonna put it on one particular food. I'll just say my wife's cooking. That'll get me out of trouble.
That's right. That's right. And did you start? What else do you have going on? Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe you said something about you have another company or production company. Tell us a little bit about that again. Reiterate that also.
Yeah, it's a small little independent record label that it's called Platinum Garage Recordings. It's tied in with my music partner David Nathan, whose company is called Soul Music Records. It's based out of the UK, London, but it's worldwide. It's distributed through X5 Warner, so it's all over the world. When we try and release product every 6 weeks, so whether it's a single or a whole album, we we've been doing this since 2017, so almost 6 years now. Every 6 weeks we come out with something.
Wow, that's awesome. Is there one thing you want to accomplish that you haven't accomplished yet? And that would be my final question.
Wow. One thing. Hmm. Uh, that
While
I
you're
want to accomplish. Yeah.
Yes, and while you're thinking of that, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of say my normal spiel here.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and say this, guys. Make sure that you are tuned in and you are subscribed to the YouTube page, and that is capital C and the number two. That is capital C and the number two, Candy Productions 2. Make sure you are subscribed, put your notifications on there. Also, make sure you once again are following the Instagram page, and that is Candy Talk Show. Okay, guys, make sure that you like, subscribe, share, please, because this is not just about the candy show. It is about my guests, making sure that I get them out there, their stories out there, and also promoting my guests. So, guys, all right. So, Mr. Preston Glass, now I just asked you one final question. What is it
Oh,
that you
okay.
haven't accomplished? Is there
Uh,
anything that you haven't
that's,
accomplished that you still want to accomplish?
okay. I haven't accomplished making it to the next day, so I'll say that making it
Oh,
to the next.
okay. Well, that was very easy. Mr. Preston Glass, thank you so much for your time again.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I
I
enjoyed it.
Oh, please keep putting out those hits. And no matter what, music never expires. So the ones that you have had your stamp on, whether you song wrote, co-song wrote, produced, or even sung on, I appreciate you, your gifts. And please keep them coming because the world needs them.
Thank you so much. I'll do my best.
Thank you so much. You guys have a good day. Thank you again, guys. Bye.
Bye.